Welcome, everyone, to Phazon Labs, powered by World 1-1 and sponsored by Phazon Flakes, a radioactively delicious part of this mutagenically balanced breakfast. I am, as always, your host, Larry the Bearded Wonder. Joining me this week is my co-pilot, Isabel Bramman.
Hello.
And Phazon Labs is our weekly fan fiction-ish elevator pitch fan game extravaganza for all things Metroid, because we conceived this before Dread was announced, and we thought we were never getting another Metroid game again. So we thought this would be fun. Mm-hmm. And then Dread came along, and then we still thought this would be fun anyway, so fuck it.
Mm-hmm.
So, this week, I've got one that I've been sitting on for a while. This one kind of came to me almost a year ago. So I've been sitting on this for a good long minute, and it's finally time to pull the curtain back and share my insanity with all of you.
Go on.
So this week, we bring together two stunning icons of the genre. I'm bringing together Samus and Ori. Yeah, we're going there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm making weird gesticulations with my hands that nobody can see because this is all audio. Mm-hmm. So, concept, idea runs like this. Samus is on the run from the Federation. We're picking up after Fusion here. Picks up a telepathic signal from the planet that the Ori games take place on, which they don't really name per se. I mean, we get the name of like the Nibble Forest, but we never get the planet name. So for all intents and purposes, I'm referring to the planet itself as Nibble, because I don't have anything better to go on at this point. So, gets telepathic signal from Nibble. She goes there, and we find out that the spirit tree on Nibble is actually the ghost of a Chozo. That's what's inhabiting the spirit tree. That's the big voice that's been talking. Mm-hmm. So, she goes there. She finds out that the Chozo have actually been there eons ago and accidentally brought the X-Parasites with them. So as a result, to deal with this, we went through the same shtick and made Metroids to wipe out the X-Parasite, except this time, they managed to actually wipe out the Metroids after they'd cleaned up all the X-Parasite. So we don't have shitloads of these little bastards running loose everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
However, they kept one in cryogenic stasis right at the core of the planet. It's the emergency fallback. God forbid something goes horribly wrong. They've got it, just in case. So you start with your fully powered fusion suit from the end of Fusion. You are max juiced, just like you were when you left the BSL and you went on the run. Except, here's the problem. On such a no-tech planet and setting, a lot of her powers aren't worth a whole ton, because there's just no mechanical computer digital interface for a lot of those things to interact with. So, as you dig deeper, you start finding more old Chozo genetic research that you pick up that begin to give you more organic Metroid-based powers that feed into that Metroid DNA that's infused in her from the vaccine. And as a result, those powers start stripping away other of her tech-based powers. So we're starting to swap out and dropping one ability for another, while also going more organic based than instead of technology based.
Mm-hmm.
So from there, we eventually get to the core of the planet and find out that that telepathic signal that Samus, was picking up and received was actually broadcasting from the queen that they had kept frozen at the planet core, but that cryogenic freeze containment was failing, and the queen was telepathically reaching out for other Metroids, and you picked up on it because you're part Metroid now from Fusion. So at that point, yeah. See, I like the story idea in this, and I don't have a huge idea going for gameplay here, but I do like that at no point are you inherently stripped of your abilities at the beginning. You're voluntarily giving one up for another that's going to be actually beneficial to you in this setting, for one that wasn't beneficial here because of the setting. I think it would be a really neat opportunity too for the franchise to play with really reaching out into new territory for abilities, powers, both combat and traversal based. Because at this point, we're feeding more into that Metroid organic centered focus for those abilities and upgrades. So, I want to see a life drain ability. I feel like it should be close quarters combat where you get up on somebody and she latches on somehow and drains the life out of it and restores some of her health in the process too. Instead of just blowing something up, you get that little grayed husk that if you touch it, it disintegrates kind of shit. I want that. So, come the end of this, we finally get down, and the queen recognizes Samus essentially as one of her own that she's called out to, because again, we're picking up on that matching genetic material. And Samus takes that opportunity of vulnerability to essentially pull the plug on her, reboot the cryogenic containment system that's been holding her there, and then super juice it so that frozen solid, that cold puts the hurt on that Queen Metroid, and then just detonates it, shattered, frozen shards of Queen everywhere, takes the whole thing out, saves the planet. Now, here's a couple of other fun tidbits I'm throwing in here, because it's never been said officially where they came from. In my headcanon, I firmly believe that the Itakuns and the Dachora originally came from this planet. It makes sense. They would not look out of place with any other creature there, honestly. So I think it'd be cool to be able to come across some Itakuns and Dachora in their natural habitat here. Little spoiler tidbit. It's not Ori that's running around with Samus, or at least, kind of crossing paths a few places to help here and there. But instead, it is the new Ori descendant from the end of Will-O-the-Wisps. You're not there yet, so I won't go too deep into that. But for anybody that's finished the second Ori, you know what I'm talking about.
Okay.
So that does not, however, negate the Chozo Ghost being the original spirit in the tree in Blind Forest. That's still a thing. Those are two separate. So, and eventually, when you get to finish it, you'll be like, oh, I know what he's doing here. I got this now. So, and then, just for shits and giggles, not that it's particularly related, but because it makes my headcanon extra happy, this is the same planet where Hollow Knight actually takes place. It's just, somewhere or someone else on Nibble, because why the hell not? Just a bunch of bugs underground. They're just elsewhere living their best bug life until the infection happened. But I feel like that would not be out of place on this planet either. And one more that I'm wrapping in here. Further down the line, as Samus, brings peace to the planet and saves it and stops the Queen from coming out and rampaging and destroying everything on Nibble. Eventually, Samus, decades down the line, finally eventually leaves Nibble, but her ship has kind of undergone some changes in the process, and it eventually becomes the ship from Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet. And Insanely Twisted Shadow Planet, the ship that you're playing as, is actually Samus' inner gunship, which is also mutated over time because Samus is mutated into part Metroid. So this was just incredibly fun for me, just to string together like almost a half dozen different games in the genre and make them all cohesive in my head. Because I'm insane, and why the hell not? So from there, here's my question. What do you want to see out of this? What do you envision here?
So I was thinking if we would do a game that was set on Nibble. I was thinking it would be interesting if we took elements from Ori, because I haven't played Hollow Knight yet, so I'm not sure exactly what's in there that would be applied to Metroid. But if we could take elements from Ori and apply it to Metroid, because one of the things that I really like about Ori is they have the skill tree, and they have the soul links, which I think are really interesting. The skill tree I thought I wouldn't like, but there's an element of strategy to it, and I think it would be really interesting to play around with that in a Metroid game where
that idea actually.
Where you would upgrade your elements, but you only have a certain number of things that you can gather, so you can't upgrade fully. And then the soul links, I think is a really interesting idea, that you can make a save point anywhere, which would make something like the Phantoon or the Yakuza nightmares for me end, because you could just make a save point right outside their door, if we bring them back to this game, which I wouldn't like, but anyway. And then that issue of having to go all the way back to a save state or whatever would be solved. So those are two things that I would really like. I also thought about
both of those.
Yeah. I also thought about an energy steal move, but then I also was thinking of a couple of other powers that could be used for Samus. One of them would be a light beam or a flamethrower. I think it would be interesting to bring those back, because those have only been used in the Prime games. I think it'd be really interesting to have them in a 2D game, if we assume that this is going to be a 2D game. And then this one, I laugh as I write this, because I wrote this back in June or whatever. I call this an Echo Dash, which is a dash attack. And it looks as though we're getting something similar in our upcoming game. So something like that I think would be really interesting in an Ori game, Ori Metroid crossover like that, that you would be able to dash around and do that. And then the third one I had was a Thorn Bomb. that you would have a bomb variant that sprays thorns around.
Ooh,
Yeah,
shrapnel.
yeah, like shrapnel ones. But yeah, so I was thinking more like gameplay that would bring the Ori games to Metroid. But then I was thinking like if we don't have Ori in this game, because I actually was thinking it would be interesting if we could like switch between the two in this game. Like you would be able to switch to Samus if you wanted to, be able to do long range, attacks, and then Ori you could do like short range, attacks. I think because you can do that in Will o' the Wisps. I think you can do more combat. So I think that would be interesting and could make for some like interesting boss encounters that like you could only it would, like one boss would be much easier if you attack like tackle it with one character, and then you could challenge yourself by tackling it with another character or something like that. So that's what I'm thinking in terms of like gameplay. The story I really like, and I like the idea of Samus having a connection with the Metroids, and would like that to be explored further, even like because if she has the Metroid DNA in her after fusion, it would be interesting. Like, does she feel any more like ethical qualms about, having to fight them or that kind of thing because she's fighting herself, basically? I think that'd be an interesting thing to explore. What are your thoughts on that?
I can't see her having any particular moral qualms with it. Now, on the other hand, what I do think could make for an interesting kind of driving story component and an opportunity to kind of inject some dialogue into it as well would be if Sign binds to her suit and offers a sort of telepathic link between Samus and the Chozo ghost that's embedded itself and become the great spirit tree in the Nibble Forest.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
And then from there, the deeper you go as Samus and Ori together, or Ori 2.0 rather, there's dialogue back and forth between Samus and that spirit, that ghost in the tree, about what the hell were you thinking keeping this thing here?
Yeah.
So.
No, I do like that. Because I do like the dialogue that they have. Well, I like how Ori in the Blind Forest like has like a combination of like narration and like really good silent storytelling. Like when Naru died, yeah, there was some tears shed, so and that was all without dialogue pretty much. So I think that would be really interesting that they would be able to keep that balance that they did with Ori. So but yeah, I think that would be an interesting take on the Chozo, like feeling regret, kind of. Even.
I think maybe, I think what would be really fun to explore, and we might even see some of this in Dread too, is Samus expressing like disgust or accusations against the Chozo spirit there on Nibble of being morally reprehensible for having kept that last one alive, knowing full well and having seen what's happened before keeping that last one alive as a fallback. It's like, no, you don't do that shit. Kill it.
Yeah. Yeah, that would be an interesting conversation, I think. Yeah. Trying to think. So like my I keep thinking of, for some reason, the Queen Goma from Ocarina of Time when I think of the Queen Metroid inside the Spirit Tree. And I'm wondering, like, because in like Ori and the Blind Forest, there's like a corruption throughout the forest that's like causing all sorts of problems. And I wonder, would this be a similar situation that the Queen Metroid is causing? Kind of like this sort of corruption, like the Queen Goma did, and whatever is going on in Ori and the Blind Forest? Or would this be more just like a regular forest? And
you might have a touch of that where the creatures of Nibble are telepathically sensitive and are being driven mad by the Queen's telepathic call. So
I do like that. I think that'd be an interesting, because I almost feel like as though the Queen might be like begging for help in whatever way that might be, whether it's help to set her free, whatever free means.
It's just trying to get loose to do what it does by nature.
Yeah, but
just to try and reproduce and propagate the species.
Yeah, but or if we go like an alternate route and we imagine that there's some sentience to it, if it's telepathically communicating, it could be asking for another form of release, So that's another possibility.
It's an idea to play with.
Yeah. So that's something that is a possibility, only because it would be interesting, like maybe this Queen Metroid and this Chozo ghost are linked together as well. Like the Chozo sealed itself away to keep the Queen Metroid from escaping, and it's slowly trying to keep the Queen from escaping, but they're becoming more and more intertwined, so you can't really tell what's the Queen and what's the Chozo ghost anymore. That might be interesting take on the story, actually. So
so last one of the last pieces to look at here. What do you hear in your head for music?
Ooh. I am imagining more Ori style music, but with some like touches of Metroid, if that makes sense.
Oh, it does.
Yeah, like I would love more leaning towards more Ori if it's set on Nibble, but with like touches of the classic Metroid, like synths and that kind of thing. I think that would be a really interesting combination, and I think with the right composer, the right score writer, that would be a really interesting soundtrack, I think. But I know nothing about music though, so that's my thoughts. So
now see, I'm close to you on this. I'm feeling maybe a 75 to 80% lean to the Ori style soundtrack music, but with maybe about a 20% injection of the more alien disconcordant side of Metroid's music.
Maybe
so that there are points where it feels kind of stretched and distressed and kind of almost unpleasant.
maybe the closer you get to the Queen Metroid, the more Metroid-like the music gets or something. That'd be interesting.
Maybe even the deeper you go, you get a more earthen sound to the Ori music instead of the very sweeping, grand, and whimsical orchestral score.
Mm-hmm. No, I like that idea. Yeah. Yeah.
But so last part of this before we put a bow on this episode for the week. I have an idea in mind, but I'm curious what yours is. What do we name this bad boy?
Ooh. I'm wondering, because it feels weird to call it like Metroid blank. So I'm almost wondering if we should call it like Samus and the Lost Child or something like that. I'm not sure, only because if we like consider that this Ori 2.0 is like, lost in the forest again, like he is at the beginning of Ori in the Blind Forest, that might be interesting. So I almost kind of like want the naming convention of the Ori games instead of like the classic Metroid blank, if that makes sense.
It does. So, but here's what I got. Hear me out and see how this sits with you. Because I'm about to run this up the flagpole and see if you salute. Metroid Ancient Spirits.
Ooh. I do like that.
I feel like that has the right ring for this.
I like the it's very evocative, but it doesn't quite spell everything out. So I do like that a lot. But I also I think I'm leaning more towards Samus and the Lost Child as mine, but I think we should go with Metroid Ancient Spirits, Samus and the Lost Child as its subtitle. So I like that.
I feel like Samus and the Lost Child is begging to make more baby jokes.
Yeah, that's true. Maybe like Samus and the oh, I had one and then I lost it. No, I like Samus and the Lost Child. Nope, that's what I'm going with. So I will die on that hill. So but no, I do like Metroid Ancient Spirits quite a lot though. Yeah. I just think Samus and the Lost Child would be the perfect subtitle to that then. So but yeah. So yeah, no, I think it would be a really interesting crossover with lots of great potential for, ideas that could be implemented into Metroid and kind of vice versa too. But yeah, no, I like this idea a lot. So, excellent idea. So,
well, in that case, let's close up shop here and hang up our lab coats. Want to say thank you to everybody that tuned in this week. Thank you to my co-pilot Isabel Bramman.
Thank you.
And we'll leave you with the very important reminder: make sure you buy Dread, and from there, we'll see you next mission. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Peace.